Hey, what's up guys, it's Tron here, and today we count down the top 10 creepiest places on the earth. Number 10. The Riddle House. The Riddle House in Palm Beach County, Florida was originally a funeral parlor. The Victorian house was dismantled and rebuilt in Yesteryear Village at South Florida Fairgrounds in the 1920s. The house became privately owned by Carl Riddle. The scary thing about this is Joseph, one of Riddle's former employees, committed suicide by hanging himself in the attic of the house. Joseph, for whatever reason, hated men and displays this hatred by attacking men who enter the attic. One man had a lid fling at his head. Men are now no longer allowed in the attic. Other places in the house are haunted as well, with furniture being frequently moved. Number 9. Helltown. Helltown, the northern part of Summit County in Ohio, is known by the eerily blunt moniker Helltown. In the 70s, Boston Township was the site of a government buyout and subsequent mass eviction of citizens. The houses were intended to be torn down and the land used for a national park, but the plans were never quite manifested. Legends spawned wildly, and who can blame, the legend mongers? Driving through the dark wooded landscape was enough to give you chills when it was populated, let alone when you had to drive by boarded up houses standing next to the burnt out hulks of others. The scary part about this is, whether based on a kernel of truth or cooked up in the heads of creative visitors, the persistent legends of Helltown add to the creep factor. The steep Stamford Road drop-off, immediately followed by a dead end, is aptly named the end of the world. If you get stuck at this dead end for too long, according to ghost story enthusiasts, you may meet your end at the ends of many members of endless parade of freaks patrolling the woods. Satanists, the KKK members, an escaped mental patient, an abnormally large snake, and mutants caused by an alleged chemical spill proudly march in this parade, and if you stray from the roads, you may find Boston Cemetery, home to a ghosty man, grave robbers, and the quirkiest of all, a moving tree. Number 8. Stull Cemetery. Stull, Kansas is a tiny unincorporated town in bumfuck? Yes, you heard that right. Douglas County, 10 miles west of Lawrence and 13 miles east of Topeka, puts it far from anything resembling a large population center. The population of Stull is approximately 20 people, but don't let the deceptively quiet village fool you. A darker side lurks behind the bushes and in the shadows. In the early 20th century, two tragedies rocked this tiny settlement. Please observe, these are not legend or folklore, but fact. First, a father finished burning a farm field, only to find the charred corpse of his young son in the aftermath. The second incident to occur was a man went missing and was later found hung from a tree. As far as legends go, the infamous cemetery is where you can find your fill of supernatural lore. The book Weird US has this to say about Stull Cemetery. There are graveyards across America that go beyond merely being haunted and enter into the realm of the diabolical. There are places so terrifying that they say the devil himself holds courts of his worshippers there. The cemetery of Emmanuel Hill in Stull, Kansas is one of these places. Number 7. The Ridges. Originally known as the Athens Lunatic Asylum, the Ridges was renamed after the state of Ohio acquired the property. The hospital saw hundreds of lobotomies and often declared masturbation and epilepsy to be the causes of insanity in patients. But that's not the scary part. Athens, Ohio is listed as the 13th most haunted place in the world, as per the British Society for Physical Research. The nearby Ohio University, which currently owns most of the property on which Ridges is located, is said to be heavily haunted. The notorious rapist with dissociative identity disorder, Billy Milligan, was housed at the facility for years. The most famous story, however, is that of a 54-year-old female patient who ran away and was missing for 6 weeks. She was found dead in an unused ward. She had taken all of her clothes off, neatly folded them, and laid down on the cold concrete, where she subsequently died. Through a combination of decomposition and sun exposure, her corpse left a permanent stain on the floor, which is still visible today. Her spirit now haunts the abandoned ward. Number 6. Humberstone and La Noria. These two abandoned mining towns in Chile were recently featured on an episode of the Sci-Fi Channel's show Destination Truth. In 1872, the town was founded as a salt pepper mine and business boomed. However, after several heavy blows, including the Great Depression, the business declined and then collapsed in 1958, and the town of Humberstone and its surrounding towns were abandoned by 1960. The treatment of workers in these towns bordered on slavery, and now the towns are left standing are derelict. But that's not the scary part. It is rumored that the dead of the Lenore Cemetery rise at night and walk around the town, and ghostly images frequently show up in photographs in Humberstone of random tourists with their families. These towns are so terrifying that the residents of nearby Kew refuse to enter them. The former residents never left and can be seen walking around, and children have been heard playing. The cemetery of La Noria, regardless of whether its occupants actually walk at night, contains open grounds and graves where the bodies are fully exposed, leaving you to wonder why. Is it ghosts or is it grave robbers? Either prospect is very appealing. Number 5. Bibury Mental Asylum. The Philadelphia State Hospital at Bibury, or known simply as Bibury, was the poster image for patient maltreatment. The hospital, in its most popular form, was founded in 1907 and known as Bibury Mental Hospital. It exceeded its patient limit very quickly, maxing out at over 7,000 in 1960. It housed everything from the mentally challenged to the criminally insane. Due to its atrocious conditions and the subhuman treatment of its patients, the hospital was closed and abandoned in 1990. It had since become a nuisance for the neighborhood, as it was breeding ground for vandals, arsonists, Satanists, and urban explorers. It was demolished in 2006 in spite of the fear of spreading asbestos, which is what was in the building for 16 years. However, that's not even the scary part. The terrifying aspect of this location isn't so much its hauntings or the unsavory characters that lurked after dark, although you would have been wise to vary of both while exploring the building, obviously. The terror here comes from the facts of how the hospital was run. Human excrement lined the hallways, which were also where many patients slept. The staff were very abusive and frequently exploited and harassed patients. One patient had a tooth pulled out without Novocaine, which is a form of pain relief, while another killed and dismembered a female patient. Although the killer, Charles Gable, was never found, the victim's body was found strewn across the property. Her teeth were found being played by another patient. Even as the hospital was in the process of closing, 2 released patients were found dead in the Delaware River 2 successive days after their release. Perhaps that gate in Stull Cemetery opens here. Number 4. Leap Castle. While this Irish castle is perhaps the most popular location featured on this list, it is worth recapping the long and often gruesome history. Although it was built by the O'Banyans in the late 15th century, the castle was taken over by ruling O'Carrolls, to whom the O'Bannons were subject. After the death of Mullinry O'Carroll, a fierce rivalry erupted, culminating in 2 brothers struggling for control. One of the brothers, a priest, was brutally murdered in his own chapel, in front of the family, by the other brother. This chapel is now known as the Bloody Chapel. for obvious reasons. Many people were held prisoner and executed at the castle. But that's not even where it gets scary. The castle is rumored to be haunted by a vast number of spirits, including a violent, hunched beast known only as the Elemental. It is most recognizable by the accompanying smell of rotting flesh and sulfur. While renovating the castle, workers discover an oubliette, which is a dungeon accessible only through a ceiling hatch into which prisoners are thrown, then forgotten and left to die. This particular oubliette contained 3 cartloads of human remains and was filled with spikes to impale those thrown into its depths. Number 3. Shades of Death Road. This New Jersey road winds through 7 miles of countryside, and along that stretch it gives us no definitive clues as to the origin of its eerie name. For those wondering, Shades of Death is not a nickname by locals, but is in the fact of the road's official moniker. While the explanation for this has been lost, many theories abound. Some say that murderous highwaymen would rob and kill those along the road. Others say the reason was because of violent retaliations by the locals against the very same highwaymen, resulting in their lynched corpses being hung up as a warning. Some attribute it to 3 murders that occurred in the 20s and 30s. The first murder saw a robber beating his victim over the head with a tire iron. The second saw a woman decapitate her husband and bury the head and body on separate sides of the road. And the third consisted of poor Bill Cummings being shot and buried in a mud pile. Some attribute it to massive amounts of fatal car crashes, while others consider it the fault of vicious wildcats from the nearby bear swamp. The most likely explanation, however, is that malaria-bearing mosquitoes terrorize the locals year to year, and the remnants of the area prevented good medical attention from being prominent in the area. This is supported by the fact that in 1884 most of the swamps in the area were drained. Number 2. Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. Welcome to Phnom Penh, Cambodia, home of the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. This former high school was converted in 1975 to security prison by 21 by the Khmer Rouge. The prison was used as a base to torture and murder prisoners. Most of the prisoners were former soldiers and government officials from the Lon Nol regime. However, the Khmer Rouge leaders' paranoia soon caught up with them, and they began shipping people from their own ranks to the prison. Many prisoners were tortured and tricked into naming their family and associates, who were then also arrested, tortured, and murdered. But that's not even the scary part. The ghosts of the estimated 17,000 victims of Tuol Sleng continue to roam the halls, and odd happenings around the place are often attributed to them, and it isn't hard to see why. Most were forced to confess to crimes they didn't actually commit. Although most victims were Cambodians, many foreigners fell victim to the death machine, including Americans, French, a New Zealander, a Briton, Australians, Arabs, Indians, Pakistanis, and Vietnamese. Only 12 people are thought to have survived. Too close the entry on this sad history. I'll leave the actual security regulations, the 10 rules, all prisoners to abide by, and I'm not even going to bother reading these out because honestly, it just gets creepier and creepier. Number 10. The Mines of Paris. Now before we do this one, I'd just like to make a formal message. I am praying for you, Paris. We're all standing behind you at Team Starfish. The seemingly infinite tunnels that run below the streets of Paris should not be confused with the catacombs of Paris. The famous underground ossuary, although the mines are also mistakenly referred to as the catacombs, exploring the mines is illegal and penalties include heavy fines. The mines were used to dig out minerals from Paris, varied sediment, the location where Paris is submerged for millions of years, and the tunnels are what got left behind. But that's not even the scary part. The mines are now unkept, unpatrolled, and unsafe. As far as legends go, ancient cults and creatures patrol the depths. Spirits dwell in the infinite shadows, and if one wanders deep enough, they may even enter Hades itself. As far as I'm concerned, we ought to get some of these terrorists and throw them down there, see how they like it. Anyway guys, that's the end of this countdown. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you click subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you in the next video.